Hey, I'm Vikash and I'm going to be teaching you how to make a simple keyboard typing game. So as you can see here, I have a timer on top and I have 3 words of your choice, and if you get all the words correct in the 15 seconds, you win the game. If you don't, you lose. So here's a simple demo. Start game, the timer on the top, 15 seconds, enter word 1, answer 1 was correct, answer 2 was correct, and then answer 3 was correct. You won the game. Nice job. You completed it in 3 seconds left. So that's if you win the game. I'll give you a demo if you lose the game. Say you misspell Mississippi. Got it correct. You have lost the game. Try again. You did not complete it within 15 seconds. So if you like this game and you want to code it, let's start. Okay. First, let's start with getting these buttons to show up in the text boxes. So first, you want to have your 3 words selected. So what I'm going to do is, say for word 1, I'm going to have Mississippi. So this is just going to be plain text on the screen, and each text box is going to have a ID, which you can get its information by, and then it's going to have a placeholder, which basically just says type the word here. So that's for word 1, and then I can just do the same thing for word 2 and word 3. Yep, so my word 2 is Wednesday, just plain text. I'm going to have a text box, and then I'm going to have a button to answer. So each button's also going to have an ID, and then a value, enter word 2, that's what you're going to see, and then an on click, which you'll be seeing these later as we use those for functions. What happens when you click it. And basically the same thing for the word 3. So that's for the buttons and the text boxes, which should, I'll show you, pop up. So that's how it's going to look. And then if we go into, as you see, there's a header here, keyboard typing. We can start by making a header. So if I save this and run this, it should have a header. So as you can see, this looks much more plain than this. All the border, fonts, and the cool buttons. So if you want, we can see in the style tags up right here, you can add your own style. So I'll show you my style, and of course you can always just improve on it or change your own colors. So right here. So basically in the body, this is just the font of everything. I centered basically everything, and then that border, the cool border you see right here, that's right here, and then I can make it a color of my choice, and you can get these colors online, just RGB calculator. And my header, that's the impact font and my color, and then as you can see, I have buttons here too. So all of those, I'm going to make a background color and padding and cursor. As you can see, it changes. So that's a lot of cool stuff, and these are all the same for everything, so you can copy it based on one of them to all of them. And now if we talk about these button ones, they come from IDs. That's why it's important to have them. So that's just basically, save this here. Now it's just like this one. So that's great progress so far, and now we can start by getting into the game. So the functionality of a game is basically you first need to keep track of if you got the answer typed in right or not. That's like one of the main functionalities. So we first need to make variables for if you got that right or not. And basically I just named them answer 1, answer 2, and answer 3, so that keeps track, did I actually get it correct? And if we keep going, we're going to make a function. So that's where these on clicks come in handy, because you can actually control it, what happens when you press the button of each one. Either enter word 1, 2, or 3. So we're going to make 3 functions, and let's just start by explaining what the first one does, because they're going to all be similar. So var answer1 equal text ID word1 dot value. So what this does is answer1 is basically what you type in here. To store that, you got to use a text box ID. So this is text ID word1. So I'm going to use that to find out what the actual value of what I typed in is a text box. So if I go in, I'm going to check if this is exactly what Mississippi, so that word 1 right here. And that's going to match exactly what my just placeholder was. That's just plain text. So anytime you want to make your own word, you can always just replace this with yours and make sure to replace this. So just 2 easy fixes. And if that is correct, I'm going to set this boolean to true. And this is going to be important because we're going to use this to check other cases later on. So if I actually get this right, I'm going to make this boolean true now. And then in my div outputs, which I'm going to introduce now, that is what these are. So div outputs are basically right here. If I type this, wait, wrong one. That's this. See this output of text? That's what a div output is. So basically we're going to have one for if your answer is correct, and another one down here is if you remember, oh, you have 1 in 15 seconds. So that's what this second div output is going to be. So basically output text. So now whenever you get an answer correct, it's going to say answer 1 was correct in a div output. That's going to use inner HTML. And then I can just, it's another style tag thing, which you can make the background green. So that's extra. And then if it's false, you're going to say it's incorrect and make it red. So that's just a else statement. So we're going to do the same thing for the rest of them. So enter answer 2 and enter answer 3. So they're just basically the same thing. You got to read, the only difference is you got to read the second text box's value, which is the main thing, and you're going to test the second word. And then the rest of the logic is the same. And just answer 2 was correct, answer 2 was incorrect. Same with enter 3, same logic. Check if the third text box, check if it's a third word, match up here. And else statement, if statement. So that's just a simple logic of how these buttons and text boxes relate. So if we see here, that's if just text box and button logic. If we save this and we can run in our current one, MISSI, PPI, answer 1 was correct. So this logic has worked so far. So let's continue. So basically, that's not the game functionality yet. So now we're going to go into the actual timer and how that works and logic of whether you want or not. So I'm going to paste this huge function, and it's a lot to take in right now, but I'm going to go step by step what each thing does. So now this is a timer. So before we get into this function, let's see how this actually, this is just another div output right here. So how it goes 15, 14, 13. So basically that's, as you see, it's separate from these div outputs. So we have to make a new one. So down here in the body function, I'm just going to make a new tag and give it its own ID and make it timer. That's what it says up here. That's how this shows up. So that's basically a new ID timer, and that's gonna control everything about the timer. And then this is the text, the pure text up here. So let's get into the timer function. So basically this var time left function, this variable, it's gonna set a seconds, so how many seconds you want. So 15, 20, that's how much it's going to run. It's going to keep counting down. And that's the counting down functionality isn't actually too bad. So that's basically this time left. So the functionality behind that is, as long as all these answers are not typed in, it's going to keep running. So that functionality is answer 1, answer 2, and answer 3. That's where these vars come in. So remember, is if it's false, that means it isn't correct. So that means if this is false, or this is false, or this is false, that means if just one of them is true and the other is true, like say these two are true, you got the first two correct, it's going to keep on going. So as long as one of them is not correct, as long as one of them is not true and still false, it's going to keep on going. So this OR logic of until you have reached all your answer choices are correct, it's going to keep on running. So say if we go to the next step, say you get down to 0. Say if it ticks down all the way to 0. Then you have to check two things. If they're all still false, that means all of them have not been correct. That means you have lost the game. So that functionality is the same way. If this one is false, or this one is false, or this one is false, just one of them is false, that means you have lost the game and you haven't completed in 15 seconds. But if it is all true, if the time is not 0 and you have completed it early, by completed early, that means answer 1 is true, answer 2 is true, and answer 3 is true. So that's where you use these ands, because as long as all of them are true, then you go into this if statement. So if the time is not less than 0 and you have completed all of them, that means you have won the game. And to add an extra initiative, you gotta put how much time is left. So you have completed it within this time. So that time left is the same variable as this tick. This, as you said, is 15. So it's going to keep on ticking. It's going to go to 14, then 13, then 12. And right as this if statement is true and there's still time left, it's going to display in this win state inner.html that you've won the game and you completed in this much time. So as another thing you notice here is this ID timer has its own output, as this is a different ID than these. But these win state, that's a different ID, that's a different output. So that win state output's going to be right here. And then as before, we saw up here, those have different outputs too, ID output. That's going to be just answer right here, it's correct. So if we get this functionality working about the timer and the game function, if we run this, let's start game. 15 seconds, 14 seconds. Type this in, correct, correct, correct. You have won the game, you completed 2 seconds left. Perfect. And then if we have a demo of getting it wrong, incorrect, answer 2 is correct, but oops, I ran out of time. I did not complete it. So that's great, we got everything working. So to wrap it up, we basically made a timer and made a function which basically controls everything about how the timer is displayed. It's going to say in this inner HTML how many seconds are left, and then the actual game functionality. If the answers aren't in yet, you continue to decrease the timer. If the timer gets a 0 and all the answers aren't in, you lost. If the timer isn't 0 and all the answers are typed in, then you won. So this is basically the game functionality, and that's the logic that you need to know for this start game function. And everything down here is basically all these buttons, text boxes, these word plain text you see, and this timer appearing. So that's basically all of the body. Those are going to be under the body tags. So these are plain text, and these are up here, if you see, these are actual checking. So make sure if you're going to make your own words, you change it up here and you change it down here. This, if you don't change it down here, like say you keep it as Mississippi, but then you put race car up here, and you put race car in this word down here, it's going to actually say it's correct, even though the word's not here. But this is just plain text, so this has nothing to do with the actual logic. So I hope you got everything down in terms of anything you need in style. You can always have fun with this, make your own fonts and search it up online. And you can also make these text box go overboard and make them also cool, just like the buttons. And then hope I explained all the logic correctly about the answer 2, answer 1, answer 3 ones, all these, and the main function start game. So hope you enjoyed making this project of this keyboard game, and thank you.